Yo. Hey everyone. I got a new webcam. Check this thing out. This was a gift to me from a person who wished to be trained, and I said I don't really accept money when it comes to martial arts training, but if you give me something, I will not say no. So whatever you feel compelled to give. And he's like, yo, let me give you this webcam. I have an extra one sitting around. So this is by far head and shoulders above what I've had before. To me, it's pretty awesome. So I recorded some videos that will come up later. Me trying to guess the names of my daughter's dragons she drew. So that'll be kind of low quality, but you gotta start somewhere, right? It's up to you. This is also gonna help me with everything editing. Like your name is just not showing up there. Tack. Font settings. Font size. About 20. Done. Say something else. I'll test it. Hi. I can see me. Why doesn't it go across? I don't know. We'll do it again. Well, I mean, chat box. I can see the tornadoes. That's a good thing. We're just gonna have to lower the font settings, I suppose. Dude. 15. Done. Holy crap. That's not tiny at all. Everybody can see that. Red on wood background. Since my whole setup isn't on like a picnic table, this is just gonna... It'll look a lot better when it's, Catacomb Kids. Or like here. That sort of looks better. I think it's alright. I don't know if you can see that or not. Anyway. I'm going to go through all my scenes before I figure out what's going on. So I wanted to touch on the topic of self-identity, because when I was coming up with like, yo, maybe I should start something and segment it and make it like a blog thing and do like a podcast and talk about politics. I kind of don't want to do that. I want to keep everything pure to the one character. I mean, especially when it comes to like the martial arts field, usually if you kind of like mix things together, especially the old traditionalists, they don't like that at all. But I mean, I am my character, so I'm trying to be my same persona online as I am here and anywhere else. So when I get home, which is about an hour ago, if I wasn't fidgeting with all these settings, I'd eat food and then I'd mess around on the computer for a bit, doing whatever. Usually I'd stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record some thoughts throughout the workday, which is just literally driving a forklift and replenishing things, and honestly having deep conversations with people about deeper things, because that is not a mentally taxing job on any level whatsoever. So we got to do something with that, right? So we talked about. I asked a guy what he thought good was, because he said he wanted to be a good father. So that'll just set him off for a bit. And I'm also going to leave the chat window open here via Twitch. So like if you happen to be on the East Coast, 2:30 to 4 roughly is my stream time. Give or take a few minutes here or there. It's rough. It's not like I get paid for this. So I wanted to break down the whole bearded karate dad theme, because that was the name that I came up with that made everybody laugh and say you should go with that. And it was not applicable till literally this thing showed up. I feel like it's kind of a new persona, right? The whole karate thing in the martial arts. I got into karate when, let's see here. I started out with American Kempo. American Kempo was started by Ed. Wow, why can I not think of his name? He was a big dude. It's going to come to me later. He came up with the Karate Creed. Ed Parker, that's it. But the guy, he was so big, like Bruce Lee said he would block his entire foot with a palm. Like Bruce Lee's foot would fit here on the guy's hand. He was a big dude, so that's the type of karate I started into. My mom was all sorts of like happy. She thought that, you're into something, because she would get depressed, standing in line waiting with the other parents, and her kids would not be into any sports whatsoever, and there'd be these kids bragging about, these parents bragging about their kids being on the swim team, that kind of thing. And then she'd feel a little despondent, like, what am I doing with my kids? And then my stepdad would like whisper in her ear, your kids can beat up their kids. I mean, that's something at least. And my stepdad was a man of few words. He's still alive. Well, so was my mom. So anyway, Kempo is for a big person. I'm all 5'6", so that lasted like 2 years, and I couldn't get into it. American Kempo is fairly good. I mean, I can see why it's useful. The thing that kind of turned me off being like a 12, 13-year-old kid was there's like 250 moves, individual moves you have to memorize, like crashing wings, thrusting salute, and all these stuff, and you have to know the move set and no katas on top of that. And I'm like, my 13-year-old brain's like, I don't want to memorize all that stuff. I just want to fight. So sparring was my favorite thing, but eventually we just kind of lost interest. Then we got into Ishinryu. There was a dojo. There was an Ishinryu dojo. It's called Hogue's Black Belt Society on the way to my grandparents' house. So I stopped in there and like, yo, it went from kids to like, they're all adults except for like 3 people and there's only 1 girl. It was the opposite. And these guys, they hit hard. I mean, and they were pulling their punches, but like at the time I was 16, so I started there at 16, and they'd hit, like, they weren't gentle. You know what I mean? Like, for a guy to teach a guy to fight, you can't be totally gentle. You have to at least, let him know. Especially if you're letting someone else hit you, once in a while you gotta sting and be like, just don't overstep your bounds there, young man. You gotta know who you're dealing with. My instructor was an ex-kickboxer. And the thing he would do is first off, he could outperform anybody physically and in sparring, and he'd show us what to do, and he'd be hard on us, and then he'd take us to tournaments, and then he would win the tournament. So talk about having somebody to look up to. So that really got me into martial arts. Yeah, it's amazing how, like, crazy a teacher can make anything. Like, you just need somebody to be into it and be competent and serious about what they're doing. It could be piano, it could be anything. But especially with martial arts, you need someone who's hands-on. Like, they have to be, maybe not the prime of their life, but they have to at least be competent at that level and just show you how to be the same. So I got an Ishinryu. And I could never do any of the other sports, backing up a little bit. The closest I got to was soccer. And soccer, I could do it if I was the goalie or the forward. I couldn't be any in the middle positions. I had to either constantly be active or be in like the scariest position. So when you're in high school and you're short, you have braces, you have glasses. Why was I the goalie? Well, I was the only one who would literally slide tackle all the seniors. So I had zero fear of being kicked in the face, and I would just love them. They'd come at me, and I'd slide tackle their legs as a goalie and watch them like flip over me. So that was fun. And I could always go after the ball. I needed a purpose and a drive to go to. Also found out I had asthma at age 36. That's a long time to go with, like, I always thought I was a wuss because I put myself through kickboxing workouts and be like, why am I so dead after like 5-mile runs? Like, geez. Well, that's why. And I got an inhaler, Ventrolin. I only have to use it once in a while because it actually improved my diet, which improved my health. And I haven't had bronchitis in like 2 years. I think it was 2 years. Something like that. So there's a thing about, and the other thing about martial arts for myself is through the years, I've noticed I really don't like, I'm not a fan of the sport of karate. So what do I mean by that? Like, if you watch anybody doing katas, I mean, do a 2-second YouTube search. Like, no one fights like that. So in the Okinawan karate for Ishinryu, when it started, it's literally someone, like, the Japanese took their weapons. They have to debilitate somebody. So it's as authentic as you could possibly get, and there's grappling in it constantly. When the Japanese took karate, they already had judo. They didn't want any more grappling. But they liked the flashy stuff the Okinawans could do. So that's how karate went over to Japan. Te usually originally meant Chinese fist. And the karate guys over there, they didn't want anything to do with the Japanese, didn't want anything to do with the Chinese. So they changed that meaning like real quick to make it more palatable for them. So I like realism as opposed to sport, like the McDojo thing. So if you go to Okinawa right now and you want to be part of a dojo, you'd have to know somebody, because it's literally like inviting, like if I knocked on your door and wanted to eat dinner with you, that's kind of like asking to be taught karate, because they have small dojos and they're like in their houses. So mine is in my garage. I could fit like 4 people there comfortably. I got 2 students right now. Maybe 2 more. If it happens, I pray about it once in a while, so we'll see. Point based karate, you can sort of understand, especially if you go back to like the 70s and the 80s where zero gear was allowed, and the rule was you have to show visible shock of being hit. So like if you kick me in the ribs and I do zero things, no one's gonna give you a point for that. But I have to be like, oh, you know what I mean? You have to have that kind of reaction to it. If you don't have the reaction to it, like you didn't hurt them, what's the point? It was before gear, so I can understand that type of point-based karate, but modern point-based karate, absolutely not. I sting you in the face with a pad that extends an inch and a half off my fist, maybe, or my hand just happened to be next to your head. Okay, I can't. I don't know. I'll take a sting for a realistic hit or a takedown. I don't know. So I need realism. I've actually been in 3 fights, 2 of which were post karate, both of which karate helped me get out of them. And it's not like karate will help you bash someone's face in, and this is the philosophy I teach my students. You want to control the fight. You don't start fights, but you finish them. I think that makes sense. Yeah, I know, not gonna hit in the groin, like, so that was a target back then. I don't know if they had cup technology, right? That's a thing. I don't know if they had that back in like the 70s and the 80s, but that was a target. And why isn't it a target? And why aren't the legs a target? You know what I mean? So anyway, this at the sport element. My current use, I use it for physical health. I also incorporated kettlebells. Ishinryu karate is quite complex. It's meant if you already have like a template of what it is to fight. Then you make it better. Like it's extremely difficult for me to teach a blanket new student. I ended up starting out with kickboxing moves out of all things. So that's the karate part. I also studied judo and a little bit of jujitsu, Shotokan. But that's American Kempo, mostly I'm a 4th degree black belt in Ishinryu. So that's the karate part of Bearded Karate Dad. We're kind of going backwards. As far as the dad goes, I have 2 daughters. I have a wife. I've been married for going on 13 years. 2009, 22. Yep, I did that math right. September will be 13 years. So being a dad, what does that really mean? Well, that's a topic I can really lay heavily into, as far as the whole dynamic between the mother and the father, and how that echoes, and how that is like an echo of the origin of reality. And we might go into that at some point. Maybe not yet, but why would you bother getting married? I mean, that's a good question. Because right now it's just a giant fiasco. It's like, what, 19% of people stay married these days. Marriage is in a nutshell. I'll probably unpack this at some point. Marriage is for the kids. It straight up is. It's not for you and them. It used to be, and this is where you can trace history and tradition. It used to be that it would, like, the government would help you if you were married, like the whole civic union thing. Like, why do you get tax credits if you're filing jointly? Like, it makes no sense these days. If marriage means nothing and man and woman means nothing, and you're not under it's all a civil contract, and when you step away further from the Constitution, take God out of everything, God giving you your rights, whereas the state gives you your rights instead. Because if you throw God out, the next highest thing kind of steps up there, which literally is the state. You get married for the kids, so the consciousness itself can continue in a new and refreshed way. That's one way you can look at it. You also get married because it gives you another perspective. Like we are constantly negotiating with our future self, right? Happiness versus joy. Because happiness is, I like all this coffee. It makes me hyper for the next couple of minutes. But if I drink 3 pots of coffee right now, well, future me is going to be neurotic and not sleeping and probably throwing up a lot. So that's not thinking. That's happiness it's more the immediate, and then joy is like the future. And then if you have joy, then you ask someone else to join you in that journey. Well, now you have like a third person perspective who can help you get better and look at the future version of you while they look at you. It's really neat. And the thing about getting married also, at least the concept is you can't run away. When if you live with someone for a while, you're gonna know everything about them. You can't lie. It's tough to lie. You can, I guess, but it's tough to lie. Yeah, the strategy of now versus later. It's like the short-term game versus the long-term game. So that's why you get married. You get married for the kids. You get married for your long-term gain. You get married for the interaction, which I think is like the first 4 verses of Genesis. And then you have kids, because the next step that is healthy and logical and that helps life continue, because life is only one generation away from extinction, is you have kids. And then for myself, the child and father relationship. This is the same with every apprentice relationship, but more so intimately, because this teaches you how to be a base person. Like if you lose your job, or lose, crash your car, house burns down, someone betrays you. All those things are like an amputation, and then what's left, that baseline, is you, and you get to help formulate that you of another person. And they help you be a better version of yourself. So as a father, I want to improve my child. My 5-year-old just learned how to ride a 2-wheel bike like last week. It was phenomenal. And then she crashed a couple times and hit her head, and it was scary. And she's 5, and she's a little. She's not a suicide machine anymore. She roughly can listen these days. But I want her to be better, and so that in turn makes me want to be like she makes me better by making me want to be a better father. I have to be a good communicator if I want her to understand. And she's this is something I was telling my daughter. Like she's meeting me in the future. My 10-year-old, she can understand this a little bit. Like we're both human. We both have start and finish. I just happen to be 30 years ahead of her. So she's literally meeting like a future person who's trying to guide and pull them up through reality. So she helps me be a better version of myself, because I've been 10. I've been 9, and I've been 20, and I've been all these years. So I can understand. I can't totally 100% be in their perspective, but I can understand, and understanding is language. And when you say you can't understand, that's when you're really starting to sever language. And that's all from the child-father relationship. I mean, that's nostalgia. That's a building a base. When they talk about love, like love of a parent, that's what's that, storge. It's the love you give to a child. That's one of the Greek words for love. But love is it's again the happiness versus joy thing. It's like love, or it's like the like versus the duty. So there's a guy in my work named Joe, and it took him 3 seconds for him to tell him what's he like. You can tell when people are serious, like seriously trying to be a human being, not trying to laugh about everything, not trying to. Yeah, and you know these people, right? They immediately start conversations in the negative. They say, "Well, man, another day in this hole." Whenever they just walk into work, you're like, "Well, it's not that bad, man. It's all right." So you can tell, like, after a few words with somebody, if they're an authentic person, they really are trying to aim high or aim up. So he told me, like, he was in prison a couple times. A couple of his friends got shot and stabbed. He's married to his wife, and his wife is like a Lou Gehrig version of Lou Gehrig's disease. So she literally can't do anything. He bathes her, he feeds her, and I'm like, I'm looking at this guy in awe, and I'm like, yo, that is the purest form of love I've heard in a while. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, she cannot return that. So that's literally what love is. It's giving without expecting in return, and that's duty. Love is duty. Love is way more like till death do you part, through thick or thin, right? They make you say these vows when you get married. That's the idea. You stick with each other. The relationship is more important than the moments of upper Joe, who I honestly don't know his last name. You would know him anyway. You're in California there, Dave Ward. So you get to focus on the love part, which is beyond good and evil as far as I'm concerned. But it's also part of it, because it binds good and evil together. And all these things, like these words, good and evil, we throw around, they deserve, a couple minutes of our time as we throw ourselves into them. So, for the beard part, because that was the karate part, and the dad part, and then the beard part, I hit 40, and I'm like, I haven't had a beard ever in my life. I tried a goatee for like 2 weeks, and I shaved it because it was itchy. And then I had to do this talk on leadership, the image of leadership, like what a leader looks like. And I think I have something like that on my YouTube. I was talking with my friend Gabriel about it. But we went all over the place. We started talking about love languages and stuff like that. I never had a beard before, and I'm like, I asked my wife. She's like, "Go ahead and try it." I'm like, "This will be your Christmas present." So I went on. And I did that talk on image of leadership, and I'm like, "Well, I'm 5'6", bald white guy. I'll wear this. This is for your benefit, not for mine." And what can I? How can I look more prestigious? Well, I'll grow a beard. It's like I heard a girl that used to sit next to me at Ollie. She was like a model. She said, I tried to say, like, I think hats are like the makeup for guys. She's like, no, 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 beards. You're a totally different guy when you have a beard on. Now my wife calls me babyface every time she sees old pictures of me. Do you just say Joe Mama? Yo. So how do we tie that into gaming? I don't know, because that's the whole thing, right? The whole good spirit mantra is I want to try to have that some kind of same character throughout the whole thing. I really like, especially as I do study now, just seeing the stories that call out to every person, the common theme that's in every one of them. Every one of them. Not just one of them, but every one of them. If it doesn't have this common theme in it, this common element, which we'll talk about at some point, then you do not enjoy the game. You do not enjoy the story. You can segment. I just like the combat, but eventually it's going to eat at you. Like you need something else in order to keep going with it. Otherwise, you just got to keep finding new games over and over again. That could be what's that, FOBO, right? Fear of better options. That can last forever. So I started doing this YouTube thing, watching Northern Line, and I think I've hashed this out before, but why not just keep it in like a blog setting here. He was doing Binding of Isaac, and I'm like, well, I can do that with Spiral Knight, so I started doing it. And it took a couple months to learn how to play a game while talking without skipping a beat, but it's doable. I think anybody can do it. Really, you just need to practice. If you practice, you can do anything. But and I started playing Spiral Knights because I was looking for free games to play with a friend of mine overnight, and this game just came out, 2012. I think we started playing it, and I just kept going with it. He wanted nothing of it, and I'm like, this is like a Zelda game that you could play for free with 3 other people. It's awesome, and 4 is like the best number. If it's straight up open world, and there's 1,000 people, you're so little, you're like insignificant. But if you're 25% of the force, I mean, you always make a difference. You always do. Or you can be a giant hindrance, and usually if you play games like that, you'll have the person who's acknowledging their weakness saying, "I'm sorry." And everybody else will be like, "It's okay, bro. We got you." And that's the right way to do that. Because you're all trying to build, like, you want to build up the younger player so they eventually become competent, so you have more people to play with that are on your level. You don't want to be like, "Oh, you noob," and cast them out. That's a bad way of doing multiplayer gaming, as far as I can tell. It's also a hobby of mine. I mean, I still do it now. I was having a discussion with my friend Corey, and I unpacked a lot of things with him. But he looked at me, he's like, "Dude, what do you do to relax?" I'm like, "Well, I play games." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah," and then I play this game called Catacomb Kids, and you have to sit there and you have to think about strategies, and then you have to implement them. He's like, "So you think when you play games?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't know." Risk of Rain's all combat oriented, but I was kind of miffed until that game got more of a story. But now the story's really cool, and you go into the lore and all the items and that, it's pretty awesome as well. But yeah, I just wanted to get back to the segmentation part of it. Bearded Karate Dad sounds funny. I think I'll just name the whole blog series of that, Bearded Karate. Like, why not? And I'll pop them on YouTube here and there. And I'll keep just putting up wins of regular games, and I gotta look for. Say our tax return comes back soon, so maybe I can find a game I can do a series on soon. But I'm gonna keep the same character that I am. I play the games, right? So this is one of the reasons why I can't just rip off my limbs in Catacomb Kids and just. I mean, if I happen to lose one from a Reaper, that happens. But self-mutilation's not in my vocabulary. Neither is suicide or anything else like that. So, anyway. I think I'll do it for this. You sure you think when you play? Well, depends on the day. Maybe that last Catacomb Kids it wasn't the best. Risk of Rain I try to, but sometimes I'm just not thinking correctly. There we go. Anyway, I think that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Click the like button. Subscribe to see more in the future. And I'll see you next time. Take care.